Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the world watches and waits for your collapse. People expect you to break, to waver, to let go of whatever strength holds you upright. They assume that when faced with pressure, when stripped of comfort, when denied what you seek, you will fold. It's what most do. The weight of hardship bends their spine, the sting of rejection weakens their resolve, and the fear of standing alone convinces them to kneel. It's easy to surrender. It's easy to let go and give in when every force around you is trying to push you down. But you won't, because you understand something they do not: that pain is not your enemy. That struggle is not a signal to stop. That deprivation does not mean defeat. The world is built on challenges, and those who expect you to crumble are simply testing whether you truly know who you are. And you do. You know that endurance is not about avoiding hardship, but about embracing it, learning from it, and refusing to be defined by it. They will take things from you: opportunities, relationships, stability. They will close doors in thinking you will spend your time knocking, pleading for them to open again. They believe that if they withhold something long enough, you will break under the weight of scarcity. That if they push you far enough, you will fall. They believe that without their validation, without their approval, without their acceptance, you are nothing. But they are wrong, because you are never dependent on them. Your strength is not borrowed, nor is your worth dictated by the whims of others. When you walk away from what does not serve you, you do not leave empty-handed. You leave with the only thing that truly matters: your self-respect. The ability to look in the mirror and see someone who does not beg, who does not bow, who does not surrender their dignity for scraps of approval. It is not arrogance. It is not pride. It is an understanding that your foundation is built on something deeper than external recognition. It is the awareness that real power lies not in controlling others, but in controlling yourself. They expect you to be desperate, but you are not. They expect you to need them, but you don't. They expect you to come crawling back, but instead you move forward. And that is what unsettles them the most. Because people who expect you to fold are not truly strong themselves. They rely on others' submission to feel powerful. They need to see others break to convince themselves they are whole. But when you refuse, when you stand unwavering, it forces them to face a truth they have long avoided: that true strength is internal. That real resilience does not come from dominating others, but from mastering oneself. So you keep going. When you are doubted, when you are dismissed, when you are left to stand alone, you do not waver. You do not beg for what is being denied. You do not shrink in the presence of rejection. You continue. You build. You move in silence, not to prove them wrong, but because you have nothing to prove at all. You do not operate on their timeline, nor do you base your actions on their expectations. You understand that the only thing that truly matters is your ability to remain steadfast, to stay true to yourself when everything around you suggests you should give up. That is where real power lies, not in force, not in aggression, not in seeking revenge, but in knowing that no matter what happens, you will not break. There is a certain kind of freedom that comes when you stop seeking validation. It is not just the absence of a craving for approval, it is the presence of something greater: self-sufficiency. The world teaches you from an early age that recognition is the currency of worth. That applause means success. That acceptance means you belong. And because of this, people chase validation like it is the air they breathe, believing that without it to invade it with irrelevance. But the truth is, the need for validation is a prison, and those who depend on it are never truly free. When you seek validation, you give power to others. You let them define your value. You wait for their approval before taking a step forward, measuring your worth by the way they look at you, the words they say, or the recognition they offer. But what happens when that validation does not come? What happens when the applause fades, when the praise is withheld, when the approval you so desperately seek never arrives? If your sense of worth is tied to external affirmation, then you will always be at the mercy of those who decide whether or not to give it to you. But when you no longer seek validation, you take that power back. You no longer live in anticipation of others' opinions. You do not shrink when ignored, and you do not rise only when acknowledged. You move forward because you know who you are, because your direction is not dictated by applause but by purpose. And that is something most people will never understand. People crave validation because they fear rejection. They fear being unnoticed, being unappreciated, being forgotten. They believe that if they are not recognized, they do not exist in a meaningful way. This is why they shape themselves to fit the expectations of others, bending and twisting their identity until it is no longer their own. They choose conformity over authenticity, safety over individuality. They become what they think will be approved rather than what they truly are. And in doing so, they trade their freedom for acceptance. But the moment you stop seeking validation, you become untouchable. No longer does disapproval shake you. No longer does praise control you. You are neither elevated by compliments nor diminished by criticism. You exist outside the fragile ecosystem of external validation, where worth fluctuates based on opinions and recognition is handed out like a scarce resource. Instead, you become your own source of value, rooted in something far deeper than applause. This does not mean arrogance. It does not mean dismissing feedback or living in a bubble of self-righteousness. It simply means that your self-worth is not contingent on the opinions of others. It means that you listen, but you do not depend. You acknowledge, but you do not seek. You remain open to learning, growing, and evolving, but not because you need validation to feel complete, because you choose to improve for your own sake, not for approval. The world is filled with those who manipulate through validation. They know that people will do almost anything to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be praised. They use this knowledge to control, to withhold recognition as a means of influence, to keep others in a constant state of striving, hoping, yearning for approval that may never come. But when you do not seek validation, you break free from this game. You do not play by their rules because you do not need what they are offering. And that makes you powerful. The ones who seek validation the most are often the most lost. They may have the appearance of confidence, the illusion of success, but beneath it, they are hollow, endlessly chasing something that will never be enough. Because validation is never enough. The moment you receive it, you need more. The moment you are praised, you fear losing it. The moment you are accepted, you begin to shape yourself even more to maintain that acceptance. It is a cycle without an end, a hunger that is never satisfied. But when you free yourself from the need for validation, you become whole in a way that most people will never experience. You do not fear being misunderstood. You do not crave being admired. You do not measure yourself against the shifting standards of others. Instead, you stand firm, unwavering, content in the knowledge that your value does not come from recognition but from within. Power is not always found in force, in aggression, or in dominance over others. True power, the kind that cannot be taken away, lies in the refusal to surrender. It is the ability to stand firm when everything around you is pushing you to give in. It is the quiet resilience of a person who does not beg, who does not kneel, who does not let circumstances dictate their worth. This kind of power does not come from wealth, status, or control over others. It comes from within, from an unshakable core that cannot be broken, no matter how much pressure is applied. The world will test you. It will place obstacles in your path, deny you opportunities, strip you of comfort, and see if you will yield. People will challenge you, hoping to wear you down, expecting you to fold under the weight of hardship. They will withhold what you want, thinking it will make you desperate enough to compromise yourself. They will try to manipulate, intimidate, or discourage you, believing that eventually you will surrender. But the moment you refuse to do so, you reclaim all of your power. There is strength in endurance. Most people think power is about control, controlling situations, controlling others, controlling outcomes. But real power is about controlling yourself. It is about not allowing circumstances to dictate your actions or emotions. It is about remaining steady, even when everything around you is uncertain. The moment you refuse to surrender, you send a message not just to others, but to yourself. You prove that you are not easily broken, that you will not betray yourself just to make things easier, that you will not compromise your principles for the sake of comfort. The world respects those who do not give up. It may test them, it may push them to their limits, but ultimately, Those who stand their ground become the ones who shape their own destiny. Others may take shortcuts, they may compromise their values, they may trade their integrity for temporary relief, but in the end, they lose more than they gain. The person who refuses to surrender, who does not give in when things become difficult, is the one who walks away with something truly valuable: self-respect. There is a kind of power in saying no, in refusing to give up on yourself, in not begging for what you deserve, in knowing that no matter what happens you will remain true to yourself. This kind of power is rare because it requires patience, discipline, and the ability to endure discomfort. It is easy to surrender when things get hard. It is easy to accept less than you deserve when you are tired. It is easy to give up on a goal when progress is slow. But power is in the person who persists. The ones who refuse to surrender are the ones who ultimately succeed, not always in the way society defines success, but in a deeper, more meaningful way. They may not always win in the conventional sense, but they win something greater: the ability to look in the mirror and know they did not betray themselves. They held their ground, they endured, and they did not let external circumstances dictate their self-worth. That is the kind of power that lasts. That is the kind of power that cannot be taken away. When you refuse to surrender, you redefine what is possible. You show others that strength is not about overpowering but about withstanding. You prove that resilience is a force greater than aggression, that patience is stronger than desperation, and that true power lies in the simple act of standing firm. You do not need to fight every battle, nor do you need to seek revenge against those who doubt you. All you need to do is remain steady, knowing that no matter what comes your way, you will not break. Silence and self-control are among the most underestimated weapons a person can possess. In a world where people are quick to react, to argue, to prove themselves, the ability to remain silent and in control of oneself is a mark of true strength. It is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is power, the kind of power that unsettles those who expect an emotional reaction, who want to provoke you, who rely on your impulsiveness to manipulate or defeat you. The one who can control their tongue, their emotions, and their impulses holds an advantage over those who cannot. Silence is a response, and often it is the most powerful one. People expect retaliation when they insult you. They expect you to defend yourself when they attack. They expect an emotional reaction that they can use against you. But when you give them nothing, you take away their power. Your silence forces them to sit with their own words, to face the weight of their own actions without your validation or participation. The less you react, the more you control the situation. Self-control works in the same way. People who lack control over themselves are easily manipulated. They are predictable, driven by emotions, unable to pause before they act or speak. They become puppets to those who understand their weaknesses. But the person who is in control of themselves, who can resist the urge to lash out, to prove a point, to defend their pride at every moment, that person is unshakable. They are not easily provoked, not easily swayed, not easily led into battles they do not need to fight. Most conflicts escalate because people do not know when to remain silent. Words once spoken cannot be taken back. Reactions once given cannot be undone. But silence leaves room for nothing to be used against you. When you are silent, you do not give others ammunition to twist your words or use your emotions against you. You do not give them the satisfaction of knowing they have gotten under your skin. You remain unreadable, unpredictable, and therefore powerful. In difficult situations, silence forces others to reveal more than they intended. When you do not rush to fill the silence, when you do not react immediately, people become uncomfortable. They start explaining themselves, exposing their true thoughts, revealing their intentions. Silence creates space for truth to emerge. It makes others wonder what you are thinking, what you will do next, whether they have lost control of the situation. The person who speaks the least often holds the most control. Self-control is just as crucial. It allows you to pause before acting, to make decisions based on logic rather than impulse. It prevents you from making choices you will regret, from saying things that cannot be taken back, from engaging in unnecessary battles. A person with self-control does not need to prove themselves to everyone. They do not need to respond to every insult, react to every provocation, or seek revenge for every slight. They understand that their energy is precious and should not be wasted on those who do not deserve it. People who lack self-control often find themselves at the mercy of their emotions. They react in anger and regret it later. They seek approval and become dependent on the validation of others. They speak without thinking and damage relationships. But those who master self-control are free. They are not ruled by their emotions, nor are they easily manipulated. They choose their words and actions carefully, ensuring that every move they make is intentional and beneficial. Silence and self-control go hand in hand. Together they create a presence that demands respect. A person who is both silent and in control is difficult to read, difficult to manipulate, difficult to manipulate. They are not controlled by the chaos around them. They move with purpose, speak only when necessary, and never allow others to dictate their emotions or actions. People often mistake silence for weakness, but in reality, it is restraint. They mistake self-control for passivity, but in reality, it is mastery. A person who can remain silent when provoked, and who can control themselves when tested is far stronger than the one who lashes out in an attempt to prove something. Strength is not always loud. Power is not always aggressive. Sometimes the greatest weapons you can wield are the ones that require nothing at all: silence and self-control. There will always be people who try to take things from you. They may take away opportunities, possessions, relationships, or even your reputation. They may try to strip you of your dignity, undermine your confidence, or make you question your worth. The world is full of situations designed to push you to your limits, to make you feel desperate enough to compromise yourself in order to regain what was lost. But in the end, nothing that can be taken from you is worth losing yourself over. People often place their identity in external things: money, status, approval, or the roles they play in the lives of others. They believe that if they lose these things, they lose themselves. But that is an illusion. You are not your wealth, your achievements, or the image you present to the world. These are just extensions of your life, things you may enjoy or work hard for. But they are not the foundation of who you are. When you understand this, you stop fearing loss, because you realize that no external force can truly take away the essence of who you are. There will be moments when people try to manipulate you through what they can take. They may withhold love, opportunities, or recognition, hoping that you will bend, beg, or change yourself to get them back. They believe that if they take enough, you will surrender your values, your dignity, or your sense of self. But the truth is, when you refuse to be controlled by what can be taken from you, you become untouchable. You stop living in fear. You stop making decisions based on desperation. You become someone who stands firm, regardless of what is lost. Some people give up their integrity for the sake of security. They allow themselves to be mistreated because they fear being alone. They compromise their values to gain approval. They tolerate disrespect to keep a relationship. They change who they are to fit the expectations of others, believing that if they don't, they will lose something too valuable to risk. But in doing so, they lose something far greater: their sense of self. They become unrecognizable, shaped not by their own choices, but by the demands of those who seek to control them. No amount of wealth, recognition, or external validation is worth sacrificing your inner peace. No relationship, no job, no temporary gain is worth betraying yourself. The moment you give up who you are in exchange for something external, you place yourself in a position of weakness. You become dependent on things that were never truly yours to begin with. And when those things disappear, as they often do, you are left empty, without a foundation to stand on. True strength comes from understanding that nothing outside of you defines you. You may lose possessions, but you are not your possessions. You may lose relationships, but you are not defined by who stays or who leaves. You may lose opportunities, but your worth is not measured by your achievements. When you truly grasp this, you stop clinging to what can be taken. You let go of fear. You stop negotiating your dignity for things that were never essential to who you are. People will try to make you feel powerless by taking things away. But the real power lies in your refusal to break. In your ability to say, "Take what you will, I remain." That is what separates the strong from the weak. The weak believe they are only as valuable as what they possess, so they will do anything to keep it. The strong know that nothing external defines them, so they move forward even in loss. There is a kind of peace that comes when you realize that no one truly has power over you unless you give it to them. That no situation, no loss, no rejection can take away the core of who you are unless you allow it. When you live by this understanding, you become impossible to control. You do not beg, you do not chase, you do not compromise yourself for temporary comfort. You stand firm, knowing that no matter what is taken, you will always have the one thing that truly matters: yourself. A person who needs nothing is truly unstoppable. They move through life with a kind of freedom that most people will never experience, unburdened by the desperate cravings that control so many. They are not seeking validation, approval, or material possessions to define their worth. They are not attached to the opinions of others, nor are they bound by fear of loss. This kind of person cannot be manipulated, cannot be broken, and cannot be swayed by the same pressures that control the majority. Most people are held back not by external obstacles, but by their own attachments. They chase wealth not because they need it to survive, but because they believe it will complete them. They seek recognition, not because it truly matters, but because they fear being invisible. They cling to relationships, not out of love, but out of the terror of being alone. These attachments make them weak, easy to control, and vulnerable to disappointment. They make choices out of fear rather than strength, constantly adjusting themselves to fit the expectations of others, just to hold on to the things they think they cannot live without. But the person who needs nothing is different. They do not act out of desperation, because they lack nothing within themselves. They do not compromise their integrity for temporary gain, because they are not dependent on external rewards. They do not waste time chasing things that do not bring them real fulfillment, because they have already found peace within. This makes them dangerous in the best way possible: unshakable, fearless, and impossible to control. When someone has nothing to lose, they become a force of nature. They take risks without fear, not because they are reckless, but because they are not bound by the same limitations that hold others back. They are not afraid of failure, because failure does not define them. They are not afraid of rejection, because they do not seek approval. They are not afraid of losing, because they do not cling to possessions, titles, or recognition to feel complete. This kind of person is rare, and because they are rare, they are misunderstood. The world does not know how to deal with someone who cannot be influenced by the usual means of control. You cannot bribe them with money, because they do not crave wealth. You cannot manipulate them with flattery, because they do not need validation. You cannot break them with threats, because they do not fear loss. They move forward with a quiet, steady power, choosing their path based on what truly matters, rather than what society tells them they should value. It is not that they reject everything the world has to offer. They may still enjoy success, relationships, and even wealth, but the difference is that they do not need these things to feel whole. If they have them, they appreciate them. If they lose them, they do not break. They understand that real power comes from within, not from external circumstances. They do not rely on anything outside themselves for happiness, and because of this, they remain in control of their own destiny. This kind of self-sufficiency is what makes a person truly unstoppable. They are not easily distracted, because they do not chase meaningless things. They are not easily discouraged, because they do not rely on external motivation. They are not easily controlled, because they do not operate from a place of fear. Their strength comes from within, and because of that, it cannot be taken from them. In a world where most people are controlled by their desires and fears, the one who needs nothing is the one who stands tall. They are not swayed by temporary setbacks, nor are they weakened by the loss of things that never truly defined them in the first place. They move with clarity, confidence, and purpose, untouched by the distractions and manipulations that hold others back. And that is what makes them unstoppable. When you need nothing, you become untouchable. No loss can shake you, no rejection can wound you, and no external force can dictate your path. You walk through life with a quiet strength, knowing that your worth is not measured by what you have, but by who you are. The world may try to control you through fear, through scarcity, through the illusion of needing more, but none of it matters when you are already whole. The person who needs nothing is the person who cannot be stopped. They move forward, not because they are searching for something, but because they are free. And in that freedom lies the greatest power of all.